Welcome, Weirdlings. I'm here at Nan's Games and Comics in Houston, and I am talking to SolarFlare Games, and they are here to represent all of their awesome games, especially Nightmare Force, which is coming out early 2016, probably around February time. So what inspired both of you all to start making games?
Well, for me, it's always been about enjoying and trying to bring people back together for more of a social interaction than a technical interaction, because with the advent of World of Warcraft and a lot of those multiplayer online gaming systems, the only interaction you have with people is over a voice channel or Ventrilo or whatever they're using today. And it was really about bringing families and friends back together at a table to interact in an analog manner.
So you have kickstarted 2 games, and those 2 games were obviously successful. What did you learn from kickstarting those 2 games?
One of the biggest things I learned was you got to build a following and build an awareness of what you're doing before you. A lot of people just think you can drop it on Kickstarter and yay, we'll fund. And it's really busy on there, and it's really hard to stand out. So you come do things like this where you show people what you're doing ahead of time, get them to tell other people, and build a following. And I think the other thing was really finding a way to financially underpin what you're doing, in the sense that make sure it's affordable, make sure you can hit a price point that on Kickstarter people will feel is valuable for what you're doing. Thrash Car is very expensive to make. It was a very large price point to start off with, and we've actually been going down as we Nightmare Force will have the lowest price point when we kickstart in February out of all the games we've ever done.
Do you try to design around a price point, or do you just kind of wait till the end and see where you can hit?
I actually do it backwards from what most people I think do. Is I go, here's an idea, here's a bunch of stuff I like to do while I'm playing a game, and I start jigsaw puzzling them together until I get something that plays, and then it goes, okay, well, let's figure out, then I go to my broker and say, okay, here's everything that would be, and I make this whole spreadsheet of all the parts and all the pieces, and 500 copies, 1,000 copies and 2,500 copies, what does it cost me? Oh, that's way too expensive. There's just no way somebody's going to buy it at that price. And then we start reverse engineering the game. How can I take 2 components and do the same thing with 1 component? Or is cardboard better than plastic? And in finding out ways to bring the price down after I've decided that's fun to play.
It really also depends on what theme we're going for. What bits and pieces need to be interchanged. Like, is it better for cardboard or the little acrylic pieces? Depending upon the theme, that's really going to drive the components and how it plays.
And if you can, you also cheat. There's a piece we're going to use in Nightmare Forest that we're actually going to recycle and use again in Titan Wars. So it allows me to order 90,000 pieces. Even if I don't use them all in the first game, I'll be able to use them again in the second game.
So along those lines, what comes first, theme or mechanics for you?
Theme. Always theme. I learned a lesson a long time ago from a friend of mine who's done games for a long time, and the trick is, I'm trying to figure, there's a lot of times that a marginal game that's really attractive will get played a lot, whereas a really ugly game that has an amazing mechanic, people will ignore it. And it's yes, everything will have a following. There's movies that have cult followings, but the average American won't go see it because it doesn't attract them. So we really, Thrash Car, unfortunately, to a degree, looks like a racing game when it's not actually a racing game. It's really almost like Munchkin and race cars, in the sense that it's a mess with your neighbor, screw your neighbor kind of game. We just happen to slap race cars on the front of it, which we learned is, to the general population, oh yeah, whereas zombies, I wanted to do zombie game, but I didn't want it to be like every other zombie game, so that's why the humans are not zombies, it's the animals. And so it's family friendly, it doesn't give kids nightmares, and it's still something that's fun for everybody to play, and has that genre, feeding into that genre.
I really like what you're doing. I like the fact that you think about the family aspect to gaming. Do you find that the reason mechanics don't come first, not just because theme's super fun to work around, like I love thematic games, but do you find that it's also like something unique to board games over video games? Because video games will grab somebody just because they have a unique mechanic over board games.
Well, I mean, the average first-person shooter is a first-person shooter. Oh look, it's clowns. Oh look, it's aliens. I mean, it's redressing a video game is a lot easier than sometimes redressing a board game or a card game. For me, I know what I want to build, mechanics that are interesting without being, okay, let's go look at the manual again. Okay, let's go look at the manual again. Like I said, Thrash Car is fairly complicated, but we wanted to do something that was kind of had a deep mechanic you know, because the Screw Your Neighbor game is easy, but we wanted it to be sophisticated. Yeah. So that's what we did with that. Dumpster Brawl is literally combat rummy. Yeah, the idea is, you know, all that old card game I used to play with my great-grandfather, you know, oh, this is so much fun. Well, how can we make it interactive so everybody's, you know, at least 2 people are always actioning, and so we made a combat mechanic in it. Nightmare Forest is literally everybody kind of has a quick turn, blah, blah, blah. And then the game we're doing after this, which is called Lords of Rock, everybody plays every single action of every single turn. So it's the mechanics come second. I mean, for me, they really do, because you can take a mechanic and you can make it more complicated, more complicated, more complicated. But a theme is a theme, and you got to build something that interests people, and then you don't shut them off with a overly complicated mechanic.
So Nightmare Forest, that's your 3rd game you're going to kickstart.
Yes.
And you said that you were kind of going something different. You're going a little smaller on this game as far as production costs go. But it really looks like a really interesting game in the fact that it's also got some great art and some interesting mechanics. Can you speak a little bit more to what's going on in that game?
So yeah, Nightmare Forest is the idea of you and your friends are out camping, and you're sitting in the campground, and all of a sudden the forest comes alive with the sound of the undead. And then it goes the furry undead. And so it's this, you know, all these forest creatures are coming to eat you. And so it's, kids can identify with it, adults can identify with it without being the shambling Walking Dead coming to get you, which can give people nightmares. And with Nightmare Forest, the idea is you grab something from your campground and you dash into the forest and you're running for the road. And really is, first person to make it to the road wins. Sorry, all the rest of your friends get eaten. And from that standpoint, the mechanic is really built around a push your luck plus a dice pool, plus a little bit of card hand management, because you can acquire gear as you play, and the gear has a limited use, and it affects your dice pool and it affects your rolls. So you're really a mishmash of a bunch of little mechanics that are easy to remember, and you don't have to check the rule book. And so the idea is, yeah, I flip the zombie over, I have to choose how many dice to use. The dice are, a couple sides are blank, a couple sides have hits. Well, the zombie requires a certain number of hits. If you don't meet the number of hits or higher, you take a wound. If you take 5 wounds, they eat you. You know, so the idea is the dice have 2 blank sides. So you can miss, so you have to make a decision, how many dice am I going to use? I know there's a little bit of luck involved, you know, how am I going to do it? And you also have the gear. You can kind of enhance what you're doing with your gear, but it also has limited uses, and some of the gear has side effects of generating noise. So then you can actually make more zombies come while you're trying to kill the ones you're fighting. So it's just lots of little things that make logical sense in the theme of the game. I don't like mechanics where, well, that makes no sense to the theme of the game. Why am I doing this? Whereas this, I'm running through the forest and I've got a tent stake in my hand. Stab, 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 stab. You know, I mean, yeah. You know, and something's trying to eat you. And then people make some jokes. So there's actually a zombie snail in there. Well, why wouldn't I just kill it? Well, it might sneak up on you or drop out of the tree on you and could hurt you. So we wanted to make all that make sense. And then we've got some big bosses that are like mythical but real, in the sense like Bigfoot and Chupacabra. So yeah. It's really just, one of my friends described it as a side scroller, like Pitfall or Rygar or all those old video games. You're literally playing a side-scrolling card game. Oh, that's cool. So it's very straightforward, fun. Everybody can identify it, from kids to adults.
Yeah, that's super cool. I will definitely be on the Kickstarter for Nightmare Forest, just because it's super interesting. And we also have a problem. We have somebody in our gaming group who's super sensitive to zombies. Like, she just can't play zombie games. So I'm hoping that maybe this will bring her into it without...
Fun fact, I'm terrified of zombies.
Really?
Yes, my older brothers made me watch Night of the Living Dead when I was 7. So human zombies, I'll watch Walking Dead, but it's like I kind of fast forward through certain parts of it because the zombies make me really uncomfortable. But I made a game with zombie animals, so it works for me. And we've got a reskin expansion idea for this one, which changes the entire game mechanic, but then it's alien invasion. So the running joke's going to be, wow, why do we live next to Nightmare Forest? Bad things keep happening there, because we're going to do one with aliens, we've got one with fantasy creatures, one with robots and cyborgs. So we have all these ideas to do, which modify the mechanic and modify the victory condition and the playstyle, but it's still the same forest.
You know, you said you had a friend who's, terrified of zombies. Well, one thing with these creatures, we've actually had kids look through all the cards and all the final art and go, that's not scary enough, or that doesn't look like a zombie. So we've actually had to make them a little bit more zombie-ish because we had, 6 and 7-year-olds go, that's not a zombie.
I don't know if that speaks to just kids and what they're exposed to nowadays or what.
Trying to hit that spot where it's cool and interesting without being terrifying was a challenge, because we are all about being family, being about families. I mean, we have a few stretch goals we're going to do in some of the games that are adult only, but the core of the game is still this part is for kids and families first, and after the kids go to bed, if you want to have some wine and play this other one, here you go.
What steps do you take as designers to bring your games up to more diverse words and things in words?
How do we stay culturally and diverse aware?
That's exactly what I'm trying to ask. Yeah.
I live in a house. When I met Angie, I lived in a house with her and 3 stepdaughters. So me and the dog were highly outnumbered, and it became one of those things where, for me, when I build the games, they're on white cards. I handwrite every card, and because as I work on them, I just scratch stuff out and go with it. And for me, it's I play every game I play. When I started out, gaming and board gaming was very male, but now as geek has gotten less ostracized and more, hey, this is you see, like I follow people that do cosplay, and I'm friends with a cosplayer named Luna Laney, and I follow Melanie Mack and a bunch of those people, and it's just become something where it's not set outside the normal, and it's not, hey, now we're part of the establishment. It's just, this is a world we all live in, we all enjoy, and we welcome everybody. And as girls, just to be honest with you, as girls and women are like, oh, okay, you guys aren't gonna just kind of stare at us the whole time, and it's become more of a community and a family, which is where my family drive comes from. It's just an extension of what we do. Nightmare Forest right now is 3 female characters, 3 male characters. And what is, we picked friends. So all the characters are actually friends. One is my stepdaughter, one is my friend Mark. So it's white teenage girl, white older man. And we have an African-American girl, African-American man. They're our friends. They're the people we play games with over time. So I use them to put them in the game. So it's just an extension of the world I live in and what I do. Like when we do Lords of Rock, literally that was more of a mathematical thing. Half the gods are female, half the gods are male, and 1 monkey.
We have to have the monkey.
Yeah.
I just couldn't resist making a monkey a lead singer.
Yeah, I really appreciate the effort you guys take to be not just gender equal, but diverse as a whole. I love.
Well, even in the Thrash Car, the soccer moms, the word soccer mom, a lot of people could take that as a negative, but it's actually the names and they run their own race team. Because it wasn't like we went, oh look, it's the soccer moms, but the race manager's a guy. It's all girls, and they're dirty and they're carrying wrenches, and we just wanted to have a lot of fun with it.
I mean, honestly, they look like badass chicks.
Yeah, that was kind of one of my requirements is, because I do have 3 girls, so I was a soccer mom, gymnastics mom, cheer mom, whatever else they got into. I hate the stereotype because I'm not just sitting in a minivan, because I can't stand minivans. And so when we did the race teams, I really wanted them to reflect the modern woman that's got work and juggling all these kids and everything like that. I wanted them to be badass.
The woman that you are, as well as the woman that women you see raising children.
We did the same thing with the rednecks, and I mean, half the rednecks remind me of my family. So that was the whole point.
We live in Texas. If you don't have a little redneck in your family, you aren't quite doing Texas right. Yeah. The other thing that I see that you guys put a lot of effort in is making sure that your art is really up to snuff with any game that's on these shelves back here. What do you do to make sure that your art is where your art's at, and how do you find the artists that you care about?
So here's the problem. I know visually what I want things to look like. I have a very good eye for what looks good. I can't draw. I'm a very good writer. I'm a very good designer. I mean, I'm a data security specialist for a living, so mechanics are easy for me. I can visualize an entire game in my head, and then I write it down. Art is, I went out, originally when I started, like Thrash Car has 10 different artists in it. And so I went out to DeviantArt, I went out and I met friends, and I started just going on Facebook and internet and be like, hey, I'm looking for artists. And you get a few people that come to you and you're like, I can't afford you. And they're like, okay. And you got to figure out what you can afford. And if you can't afford to make it look good, wait till you can. Because if it looks horrible, people are going to assume it's horrible. And it's really kind of funny. It's a microcosm of the universe of looks in people. People are attracted to people who are attractive. Well, same thing works in board games. If I look at the shelf, like Dumpster Brawl, I know you'll take a shot of it, but Dumpster Brawl is just as bright, anime animals, and people. I watch people go, ooh, and that's a hook. So I've ended up. The guy who did a lot of the art for Thrash Car actually does the art for BGG Con. I met him there and we became friends. And I've got a guy in Mexico that does a lot of my art, and he's like almost like a little rock star at his college because he's in the board game. Met a lady locally at a we were at Big D Design, and her husband sat in on my board game design speech and dragged me over to meet her, and now she's doing some art for Lords of Rock. So it's just kind of, you find somebody and you build a relationship with them, because, you know, I can't pay you $50 an hour to do art for a board game I'm trying to kickstart, because one of my rules is I won't bring it to Kickstart till it's done. The only thing in Kickstarter that will change is, like we do Nightmare Forest, one of the levels will be a character in the game. So then the diversity might fall out the window at that point, because it's going to be, I want to let people, if they want to be part of the game experience and be in the game, I want to give them an opportunity.
So you've got Lords of Rock coming up in 2017, as well as the Kids versus the House.
The ideas are coming faster than the amount of time to design them, test them, art them up, so to speak. Art takes the longest for what we do. So the production schedule right now will be February 2016 will be Nightmare Forest. All the art for Lords of Rock and Kids vs. the House are rules complete. They're fully tested. They're just these little white stacks of cards, which I have in the box over there, and we'll show you Lords of Rock before you leave. You need to see it. Lords of Rock, you can literally explain in 3 minutes, and everybody starts playing. It's great. Nightmare Forest takes a little bit longer, but it's still fairly easy to grasp. So it's Nightmare Forest in February, Lords of Rock in August. These are all, if everything goes well, 2016. Kids vs. the House in February 2017. And then Titan Wars will be August of 2017. And then we have a couple of nebulous things. We have Intergalactic Raiders of the Lost Universe, or Lost Galaxies. We haven't decided yet. It's a worker placement, raider, pirate kind of hidden action game. Meh, which is Must Eat Humans, which is a deck builder where you play zombies trying to eat people instead of humans trying to stop zombies. A game that's a hybrid of Mario Kart, Car Wars, and Death Race, and a fantasy skin.
That's all 2018.
Yeah, 2018, 2019, and then I've got a game I've worked on for many, many years called Ground Forces Dominion, which is a 2-player game, card-based, pool of resources that you can spend to buy certain infrastructure, and then you fight each other to wipe each other out. And it's based on a game I was part of a long time ago called VGA Planets, which was a play-by-email space game. And I'm good friends with the guy who created it. I created the manuals for it and a bunch of the most best-selling add-ons for that game ever. Well, he said I can use his universe anytime I want to make a card game, and so that's still out there to do too.
You're an inspiration amongst wannabe board game designers as a person who eventually wants to be one. That's incredible.
Honestly, the design and creation of ideas is the easy part. I have a presentation that I did at Big Dallas Design, and I said, who here has designed a game? And everybody put their hand up. Who here knows what it takes to produce a game? Nobody. And really, I call it the dirty underbelly of being a game designer. It's, doing this, doing that's easy. Doing this is hard, because you have to, if you come to a Kickstarter and you need all the money to do the art, and you'll never understand how long it takes to get the art done, because artists are artists, and if you push them, they kind of disappear and wander off. And if you get all the art first and come ready to go, it's much easier to do. You have a solid idea of what your costs are going to be, what your tiers are, because literally making 500 copies of a game to 1,000, when you go to 1,000, the cost drops almost a third. So if you have a big following, you're going to do well, then I know I can produce extra add-ons during the Kickstarter. If we know we're going to hit 1,000 copies instead of 500 copies, there's more things I can do for you. So I already have those planned. Like for the collector's edition of Nightmare Forest, we have a really silly little 10-card booster that will go in the collector's edition, but we'll also take the character cards and turn them into cardboard punch-outs, so you can put them in a stand and the person will stand up and play. And so just little extra things we want to do that will only exist in the Kickstarter version, but it won't affect the game. If you don't have those things, the game doesn't play any different than the people who own the regular game. Look, if I can add a bunch of stuff that, if I add this, and this, you only get in Kickstarter, but it's no different than the stuff that comes in the basic game from a function standpoint, cool. Extra art, extra little bits, extra little things that are kind of cool, foil on the box, foil on things in the game. I think that's fair. Kickstarter exclusive. It's a little badge of honor. I backed the Kickstarter, so I got this stuff. But if I say, oh, you get this super card, and it's something you can take to other games and people play with you and they get crushed because of this thing you got because you got it on the Kickstarter, isn't fair. And so I try really hard to avoid that. It's all about equality and fun for everybody, not, hey, I had money and I knew about it before you did, so I'm cooler than you. I don't want that. That's not what my company's about.
If you, both of you, I want one from each of you, if you could give one piece of advice to up-and-coming board game designers, what would that be?
Fun first. Yeah, make it interesting to you and your friends, because if you make something that in your head sounds cool and amazing, but you stand with a group of people and they're kind of like, I don't know. Don't do that. Do something you enjoy and you're passionate about, and drive it, even if you don't think it could be mass appealing, because what'll happen is your passion helps drive what you're doing, and people will get on that train with you. I
have to agree with Dave. If you're passionate about it, that's a huge thing. But also, when you design a game, remember you're probably going to be playing that game 100, 200, 300 times. So you better like the mechanics and the art and what you've done, because you will continually play that game. It's not going to be one that you just go put on your shelf and you get out occasionally, because you'll be taking it to show to other people. And so you have to really enjoy the game you've made. I think another thing you got to think about is the replayability. If you have a game that you can only play, it's like a story game that you can only play maybe once or twice, and then, I've already done that, been there, done that, then why would I play it again?
Yeah, and your friends who are forcing to play test with you a lot are slamming their head on the table.
Yeah, and you don't want to be in that situation, because if somebody buys your game, they're going to play once or twice, and it's going to either end up on their shelf, it's going to end up on a geek list being sold, or being given away. Yeah. So you want something that is high quality, that the people who actually purchase your game are going to enjoy, want to play over and over with their friends, and be proud that they own that game.
Part of what we tried to do with Dumpster Brawl, Nightmare Forest, Lords of Rock, and Kids vs. the House, they're all games that you can quickly play between other games. And that's what we wanted, because nobody gets sick of playing that game. Oh, hey, we're waiting for our friends to show up so we can play Arkham Horror for 6 hours. Okay. Well, I love playing it too, but I can't do it every weekend, because then I'm like, I get that burnout, that glazed Arkham Horror look going. But I love the game. And so part of what we tried to do is Dumpster Brawl. If you play it with 4 people and with the basic settings, you can play it in 20 minutes. We've seen it played in 7 minutes. The worst we've ever seen is 40 minutes with 6 drunk people. Yeah. And it was 40 minutes, but that wasn't bad. Nightmare Forest plays for 6 people. We played it. It's always been less than 35 minutes. So it fits really good between those heavier games, which is what we wanted to do, is fill that spot of quick and fun, or fun while you're drinking wine or beer or whatever, that kind of, or mom's making dinner, so mom can run back and forth from the kitchen, or dad can run back and forth from the kitchen while they're making dinner, but play something with the kids, so they're having that family time, and the kids aren't all, and they have that interaction. That's what we wanted to fill, is that niche.
Then the last thing I wanted to ask you guys, outside of your games, which are really awesome, what games are you guys excited about that are coming up? Oh.
There's stuff that's just come out that we liked. Edison versus Tesla. Well, we're the same. We both like any expansion for DC, the deck builder. She goes, oh, this one came out. We drove right to the store and get a copy and come home and play it. Between Two Cities is really good. She loves Machikuro. There's a game that was at BGG last year called The Game, and it's just a card game with numbers on it.
It's a Spiel des Jahres game that it didn't win, but it was there during the BGG family event that they had. It was great. I mean, it's because you're not allowed to talk, but you can communicate to everybody at the table trying to...
I think I'm going to play something like this, and everybody goes, we're very big on, we want some stuff with strategy, stuff that's fun. Like, we're not Cards Against Humanity people. Because to me, that's a social event, not a game. And maybe that's a snobby game designer way of looking at it, because there ain't a game designer on the planet when you go, I wish I'd designed it, because I'd have all this money now and I can make other games that I want. It's kind of like that it kind of is that movie star who makes the big blockbuster so they can make the little indie films. That's, I'm not above having somebody come to me and go, okay, we want to buy your game and make lots and lots of it, and I can make other little things. But for us, Edison versus Tesla was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Power
Grid, Suburbia
was good. I love Compounded. It's science.
You're basically you're acquiring acquiring elements and making compounds.
You play it. You're Madame Curie, or you're people who actually discover. And so you have a card, and there's a layout of compounds, and you have to draw out of a bag oxygen and carbon and all these things, and then you have to spend your elements to make compounds to get victory points. And
that's really cool.
It is. Our friend's got the big wooden box that has all the stuff in it. Like she likes the DC and Ascension and stuff, but she doesn't necessarily like playing it with me. I'm the guy that will build a hand that I can play 50 cards one after the other, and then everybody else is like...
Draw a card, chain person. And, everybody at the table's like, all right, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Yeah.
Our taste, that's what we like. That's the other thing is like why we're a good team is I'll sit down and design something all the way out. And then I go, okay. And I make her sit at the table and I try to describe it to her. If I can kind of sit there and go blah, 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 she goes, oh, okay. That's a good design. If she goes, what? That's not a good design. So then I'll go to, okay, I'll draw some pictures. And if I draw the pictures and she still doesn't get it, I go back to the table. Because I can design in my head all day long, and I can design really convoluted things in my brain. They're like, oh, if this happened during the game, this would be so cool and fun. Everybody at the table would go, oh! But then you're like, oh, wait, nobody but me understands how to make that happen, you know? So we're really good that way. I do so much of the design work, and then she goes, no. Because she does all the marketing and all that stuff, and like with the art, there's times where I'll go, oh, this looks so cool, and she goes, no. You know, but it works out. That's why we work really good as a team.
I always try to make sure that the games that we do, people who are colorblind can still play them, because we make sure that there's symbols and numbers and things like that. Or if you have a little bit slower memory and some cognitive issues, yes, that, you know, when you're looking at the cards, you're not like, completely blank face going, what the heck am I doing?
A card with a block of text on it.
Yeah, so it's trying to make sure that it's visually interesting, but it's also, you know, people who are colorblind, they can't see the difference between green and red or yellow, or so
there's
making sure there's
like the Nightmare Force cards are color coded, but they also have a number on
yeah,
them. Yeah,
so we've made sure that there's a number as well as the color codes. So for people who are very visual, they're like, oh, here's what I'm doing. But for the people that struggle with that, then they have that ability to go, oh, I know what I'm doing too.
Weirdlings, check out SolarFlare Games. They're freaking cool as all get out. And I have really enjoyed talking with them. And thank you to Nan's Games and Comics for allowing us to have this conversation today. And I'm going to let them get on with their demo, because if not, I'm going to occupy all their time and pick their brain all day long. All right, have a good one. Bye, guys.